Started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literacy Lessons, an introduction. This will be a very quick overview filled with lots of information. So to give us a chance of getting through it all in the next 30 minutes, we're going to ask you to please keep your microphone on mute. However, this is being recorded and we'll share a link after, along with references and resources we'll touch upon today. So I'm Tina Boise. I'm a special educator who's also worked with students with complex physical and cognitive disabilities from early primary to high school on both sides of the pond. For the last 17 years, I've worked for commercial suppliers of AAC and assistive technology in the UK, which has given me a tremendous opportunity to work alongside and learn from many teachers, practitioners, families, and experts in the disability field. 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to attend a 3-day course with Karen Erickson and David Copenhaver. If you haven't heard of them, they are current thought leaders in the area of teaching learners with significant disabilities how to read and write. The time with them planted the seed, which has led me to make this very recent change. It's been less than 2 weeks to leave the commercial sector and start as an independent consultant where I plan to focus on AAC and literacy. Much of what you will hear me say in this session today has been drawn from Karen and Dave's work, this book, Comprehensive Literacy for All, which has become my Bible, and the research from the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies, of which Karen is a director. All of their work has resulted in great success teaching learners with significant disabilities to read and write. Fran, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Tina. So hi, everyone. My name is Francesca, and I'm a speech and language therapist working for ATtherapy, which is an independent speech and language therapy company. So at ATtherapy, we have an expert team of speech and language therapists who assess, diagnose, and provide therapy for people with speech, language, and communication and/or swallowing problems. We help them to communicate to the best of their ability. Our head office is located in the Northwest with outreach to all other areas of the UK. I specialise in the field of AAC and currently embed lots of literacy instruction with my caseload. I'm also involved with a literacy project with Manchester Metropolitan University, where we're looking at the quality and quantity of literacy instruction that AAC users receive, AAC and literacy assessment, and also the perspectives of AAC users themselves and their parents and carers on their literacy experiences. In addition to our ATtherapy team, we have a fantastic award-winning AT mentor team, which consists of 8 young adults who are all highly competent AAC users, and their role is to inspire others and show them what's possible, a few of whom you'll see in the presentation today.
Literacy is communication using the letters of the alphabet, spaces, and punctuation. This is the quote, the very essence of what has brought me and Fran here today, looking at this topic from our 2 perspectives. If literacy is communication, and we accept that the only way to communicate exactly what we want to say to whomever we want to say it to is by having the ability to construct messages using the most flexible symbol set available, the alphabet, and then we add in physical and sensory limitations for some in accessing the tools needed to develop literacy skills, books and pencils, then whose job is it to plan and deliver literacy instruction? It's all very tangled and can be hard to unpick. Does it lie with the teacher who traditionally has been responsible for literacy instruction, the speech and language therapist who typically develops the means for communication, the OT, AT, or VI specialist who will figure out a way to access books and pencils, or the parent who has the ultimate care of duty to help their child become as independent as possible? It becomes even more complicated when we look at it through our different lens with our varying assessment tools, goals, objectives, and outcome measures for literacy and communicative competence. This is the conversation that Fran and I are having and trying to figure out, and what's led us to the decision to put these sessions together from our backgrounds and experience as teacher and speech and language therapist. Today's aim is to get you thinking about this important topic, that everyone deserves the chance to learn to read and write so they may become more independent communicators. Going forward, our aim of the literacy lessons is to give you practical sessions you can walk away with and start implementing immediately. But it's also an invitation for us all to learn from one another, from our varied backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences.
As Tina's mentioned, today is just a taster, and it's an introduction to the literacy lesson series that will be running from now all the way up until October. So we plan to deliver specific training on how to complete AAC and literacy assessments and where to start on embedding reading, spelling, phonics, writing, and comprehension literacy instruction. We'll conclude the series with a useful list of resources, but we'll also be providing ongoing support via a Literacy Lessons Facebook channel. At the end of this presentation, we'll talk about dates for the diary, and we'll tell you how to sign up, and Tina's going to go through some special discounts as well, but we'll also send this out in an email following the training. So the aims of today are as follows. We will discuss why literacy skills are the ultimate life goal for all AAC users. Tina's going to explain what we mean by literacy and comprehensive literacy instruction. And I'm going to finish with concluding about how important an MDT approach is to complete this meaningful instruction. As we've mentioned, this will be a very brief taster, and we will have some opportunities for questions and answers at the end. So if you can please write any questions or comments in the chat as we go through, but we are also happy to continue conversations via email. Okay, so starting off the taster with why is literacy important, and who better to explain this than an AAC user themselves? I have the privilege of working alongside Leith Ritchie, who is an extremely passionate and enthusiastic young man who's already doing lots of great work in the field of AAC and literacy. So I plan to share now just a short video of Leith in AAC and literacy journey, which I think really highlights how important literacy skills are.
This means my role is to inspire others and show them what is possible. I am 17 and I got my first AAC device when I was 6 years old. I had an old Dynavox with a symbol-based communication package. At first, this was quite basic to help me to make requests, but as my vocabulary grew, I got more advanced symbols to express a wider range of things. It was a challenge to get my
Oh, sorry, that was me.
accents right. At first, I used a key guard. Then I tried eye gaze, but it was difficult, so I ended up using a switch position by my knee. This was an effective way for me to communicate. However, the vocabulary was still very limited and I could not say my wants and wishes effectively. In my literacy journey, I will be honest with you, I did not receive the support I desperately needed at the start of my AAC path. I felt left out because due to my speech difficulty and physical disability, I could not do activities that my peers were doing. I think my literacy journey properly started when I was 10 years old. Before this, I could spell and read at a considerably basic level, and my method of communication was through speech and a symbol-based high-tech device. Looking back now, this system was not adequate for my vocabulary level. When I was 10 years old, I was introduced to the speech and language therapist that changed my life entirely. At first, I thought I could continue to use symbols to communicate without needing a keyboard, but now I look back and I am thankful that my speech and language therapist showed me an alternative way of using AAC other than symbol-based.
Tina?
To start with, that due to my very challenging physical needs, I was unable to use this style of keyboard with a gaze. This is when I was shown a 2-hit keyboard, which enabled me to start to spell independently with no misfits. I relied heavily on prediction, however, this now meant I could say whatever I wanted, and I didn't need to choose from the symbols that someone else had selected and put into my vocabulary. I'm extremely passionate about helping people who use AAC and those around them to learn the importance of acquiring literacy.
Oh my God.
I feel that people in school didn't have the knowledge of how to teach someone who uses AAC literacy. If I didn't become literate, I feel I would not have been able to keep in touch with friends and family or achieve as much educationally and at work. Literacy should be at the center of AAC. The literacy journey should be at the forefront of every AAC user's development, as this will allow someone to autonomously and flexibly communicate whatever they want. I will finish with this quote I love: "The world is yours if you can read and write," from Catherine Cook's Dilly Trotter.
The world is yours if you can read and write. This is the kind of literacy that enables children and young people that can't talk to say exactly what's on their minds. It's the literacy that can help support language learning, so support that development of learning of vocabulary and syntax or sentence structure. It provides a means to communicate any message for any purpose. It also increases employment options. So as I mentioned earlier, that all of our mentor team are highly competent AAC users and they're all literate. Research shows that literate users have more employment opportunities. Literacy skills can enhance others' perceptions of their competence, therefore resulting in increased opportunities for learning and increased self-esteem. Gregor on this picture works for AT Mentors and he's heavily involved in the AAC community, participating in research and acting as a role model for other AAC users. This is the kind of literacy that makes social media tools accessible, which has been particularly important during lockdown periods, which have been very socially isolating time for AAC users. So here in this picture is one of our clients sending a lovely selfie on Snapchat and then editing it to have a funny caption. It's important to mention here that assistive technology support has been invaluable with this client in enabling integration and effective use of mainstream technology. It enables individuals to have greater choices over medical procedures, their therapies, and other important life decisions. Importantly, it enables access to print in the environment. So here is a picture of one of our clients who's going to the supermarket to do some shopping and then have at lunch in a cafe. With literacy skills, she can go around the supermarket, read the signs, go through her shopping list, and then she can look at the menu and choose what she would like for lunch herself. And finally, this is the kind of literacy that improves independence and quality of life. So this is one of our clients who's at the early stage of literacy development, but it's by far the most enjoyable aspect of her therapy. With literacy instruction, she'll regularly engage in listening to audio books, reading books independently on her communication software, and playing letter sound awareness games. So within future literacy lesson series, I plan to share lots of case study examples to show literacy instruction in practice. And this will hopefully help you think of clients who are similar and apply some of the approaches and techniques that Tina and I have used. I'm now just going to talk briefly about two clients, one of which is a conventional and the other one is an emergent literacy learner. And Tina's going to go on to explain those terms in a little while. So here is Lucy, and Lucy's a conventional literacy learner. And she says that without literacy, I wouldn't be able to do my online shopping, create a Moonpig card for my mum, chat to my friends on Facebook, and comment on my favorite posts on Instagram. This client is called Lily, and she's an emergent literacy learner who really enjoys engaging in shared book reading. You will see in this really short clip that she's working alongside a peer and engaging well with reading letters in a book called Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. I apologise a little bit about the filming. It was quite tricky to hold the camera and the book at the same time, but here you go.
And I and J. D-E-F-G. D-E-F-G, yeah, they just went up, didn't they? D-E-F-G. Now we've got and I and J and tag along K, all on the way up the coconut tree. I-J-K. Yeah, Lil, I-J-K. We're listening. That's right. I-J-K. I-J-K.
To conclude this section, I just wanted to briefly talk about the lexical gap. So we all have a lexical gap, meaning that we have words that we understand, but we don't necessarily use in our everyday vocabulary. So let's introduce and support our students by letter spelling, rather than giving students tons of topic-specific fringe vocabulary, like all the words for the Romans. We'll teach them to generate their own, as it has been estimated that school-age children learn around 3,000 words per year. So linking back to what Laith said in his video, even at the early stages, we can give children and young people the tools to identify an initial sound and then rely on other features such as word prediction or even contextual cues to say more topic-specific vocabulary, like chariot, for example. So hopefully those previous slides above have highlighted that literacy is key to educational and vocational opportunities, as well as the use of more complex AAC systems.
Right, I'm there.
Current evidence overwhelmingly indicates that young children with severe speech and physical impairments do have the learning capabilities for early reading and writing skill acquisition. However, many fail to develop the skills commensurate with their cognitive ability and potential. They get significantly fewer early literacy experiences, so we really do owe it to them to dive in. So I'm going to hand over to Tina now to explain what we mean by literacy.
Thanks, Fran. When we speak of literacy, we mean this very narrow definition: reading and writing traditional orthography, so that's print or braille, for meaningful purposes. Both the team of knowledgeable others and learner need to have the cognitive clarity that the purpose of engaging in literacy instruction is to attain this goal, this ultimate life skill, which brings with it independence to connect and communicate face-to-face and from a distance, as we just heard. Learners learn what we teach them, and if we teach them using non-conventional and graphic symbol-related materials, then we're not teaching them to read and write. We're teaching them to depend on these supports. And while those supports may seem helpful at the time, in the long run, they're putting up barriers to achieving true independence. We need cognitive clarity. What's our purpose? What's in it for the learner? Something to consider in all our various roles before we begin any intervention. We need to reflect on the tasks we're asking learners to complete and ask ourselves if this is in the vein of developing skills to read print with understanding and to write with meaning. My aha moment with this "what is the purpose" had to do with the use of symbols. When everywhere I look about this topic, I'm being told that there are over 40 years of research from various bodies proving that symbols have no place in teaching people to learn to read and write. That when we put a symbol above a word, that symbol will always win for attention and hinder our experience with traditional orthography. But I've made a living for the past 17 years working for both Widget and Boardmaker. Anyone who knows me will tell you that I am the biggest symbol geek out there. So how does this wash? Then I had my aha moment. If my purpose is to support communication, to give someone who does not have the means to put letters together to form words that lets me know what they think, want, or feel, then symbols have a powerful purpose. If my purpose is to support someone with their daily routine, their behavior to cope with what will or will not happen, then symbols have a place. But when it comes to learning to read and write, I accept they don't. I aspire to this narrow definition for all learners. I know better, so I'm going to try really hard to do better. Back to this definition, this goal, this purpose of teaching all students to read and write conventionally. I know it seems scary or unachievable to some of us. It's complex, it's messy, and not everyone will get there. But I'm going to make the least dangerous assumption, which means that in the absence of conclusive data, educational decisions ought to be based on assumptions which, if incorrect, will have the least dangerous effect on the student. In other words, I'm going to assume that everyone can learn to read and write if given the appropriate level of support and instruction. And if my assumption is right, then wow. And if I'm wrong, well, then I think Caroline Musselwhite in this next video sums it up perfectly.
I feel like it's so crucial not to underestimate people with disabilities, because we can never guess what's inside. And there are students who have such potentials, and students who might make a little progress that makes a big life change. And I think we can't know that even though this student didn't learn to read, because I've tried to help him learn to read, he developed just this joy of story listening. And that enriched his life. Because we tried to write, we built his vocabulary. And so now he understands more things we talk about. He never became a writer, but his life was enriched in the trying. And so we can't underestimate, and we can't stop trying, because we just never know where this journey is going to take us. And we never know what we're going to find along the way that we never expected.
Okay, so now let's talk about comprehensive literacy instruction, which addresses each of the elements that's required to learn to read with comprehension and to write to convey thinking. It's the framework for effectively teaching learners with significant and complex disabilities how to read and write. We'll talk about assessment in our next session, but we can start by simply asking these 4 questions. So, does the student know most of the letters most of the time? Do they engage actively in shared reading? Do they have a means of communication and interaction? Do they understand that writing involves words and letters? These questions are not specific in criteria. These questions do not require you to be a literacy expert to answer them. But these questions are hitting on the key elements that are the foundation to conventional literacy. Now, we're going to pop up a poll now, and I want you to think about the learners you are supporting and indicate whether you can say yes to all 4 of these questions, or whether you answer no to 1 or more. So I believe Andrea is going to pop up the poll now for everyone.
Hi, I'm really sorry, Tina. It's telling me that it's not giving me permission to do it. I wonder if it's giving either of you guys permission to do it.
Oh, okay, let's see. It looks like I can. There we go. I've launched the poll. So we're just going to give you a moment. So can you answer yes to all 4? Or is it no to 1 or more? If you have any no's. Okay, so just going to give you a minute to think about, and I totally appreciate some of you are going to have mixed ability classrooms, and that is for another day. It's a big topic. We can talk about that in the future. But for now, if you think about the majority of your students, yes to all 4. They know most of the letters most of the time. They engage actively in shared reading. They have a means of communication and interaction. They understand that writing involves words and letters. Okay, so we're getting answers from most of you. I will end the polling now. It looks like overwhelmingly, I don't know if it shows, I can share the results. 78% of you are saying that you have a no to 1 or more. Okay, so now let's talk about what happens if you said yes to all four. Then you are going to put forward some conventional interventions. If you have said no to one or more, then we're going to talk about emergent interventions. Now, we've only got a few minutes left, so we can't get into all of this today, but we will talk about interventions for all of them in future sessions. But let me give you a little bit of an overview. For those who answered no to one or more, you're going to be working on emergent interventions, where the framework suggests doing all of these things daily, which I fully appreciate is a tall order, but we'll discuss in our subsequent sessions how you balance this with everything else you need to do in your day. But all of these interventions are designed to give our most beginning beginners the opportunity and experience to build concepts around the function of print, to understand the purpose, the why of letters, words, books, and writing before we start working on the how. It's about helping them to connect the dots between listening and speaking, verbally or using AAC, with reading and writing. That's that bit that once again tangles the roles of I as a teacher and Fran as an SLT, but we're making connections between language communication and literacy. So it is a team effort. Here in this example, we see a knowledgeable other reading a book with a learner. We see her exposing the learner to print and its function, while the AAC system, which is supported with symbols, allows the learner to make comments, observations, and connections to the text. And if the learner is not there yet communicatively, the knowledgeable other is picking up on verbal or nonverbal cues or any symbol that the learner selects in their system, and they respond to it. They assign meaning to it, and they model how to communicate those thoughts with language, here supported with AAC. In our session on reading, we'll show you how to implement shared reading experiences like this using a system called Follow the Car, Comment, Ask, Respond, and how to give learners lots of independent experiences with print in all forms. We'll discuss creating opportunities for developing alphabet and phonological awareness as a precursor to spelling and phonics. We'll also build connections with language and literacy through a shared writing strategy called predictable chart writing, as well as show you how to facilitate access to all of the letters of the alphabet for independent writing, regardless of physical limitations. So now on to the conventional interventions, for those of you who could answer yes to all of four of the questions. Now, the more I've been learning about this framework, the more I've come to understand that getting to the point we can answer with all four yeses, working to develop that strong emergent foundation is the key to giving our learners the best chance of becoming successful as conventional readers and writers. By learning the function of print before form really draws me in as a teacher, as it builds that language and literacy connection. We're helping our learners to become better communicators while developing an understanding and love for reading. And as Caroline Musselwhite said, for some, they may stay in this for a long, long time, or maybe forever. But for those who develop that strong base, we move on to the how by focusing on these conventional strategies. How to make sense of information read and communicate that understanding to others. How to put letters and sounds together to make words. How to write for different purposes and meaning. And how to pull on skills to read what is presented on a page silently and with understanding. Again, these are all things we're going to look at in our subsequent sessions and give you ideas on how to implement. But the good news is there's lots of free resources that are evidence-based, which we'll highlight and show you how to use for ongoing support and development. Fran?
The key to all children's literacy development is keeping that final literacy destination in mind, but being aspirational and realistic about the achievable steps we need to take along the way. So in the book that Tina showed earlier, this highlights how the team of knowledgeable others need to work together really well. So to become literate, students with significant disabilities need parents and carers who coordinate with teachers and other service providers, who read with them, involve them in family print use, and build their self-confidence and resilience. They need teachers who understand that learning is not dependent on perfectly functioning bodies, that it can occur at different rates for different people and in fits and starts, and that students benefit from lots of different types of print experiences within the curriculum. They need speech and language therapists to deliver language and communication interventions and to share information with key members of the MDT about communication strengths and weaknesses. They also need occupational therapists to make writing tools and books accessible, as well as physiotherapists to help with positioning of AAC and making sure that that's accessible. They need assistive technology support to help make the world accessible to them, also providing advice on access methods and system integration. Ultimately, they need teams who believe in their capabilities, who appreciate that difficulties are inevitable, but that understand that these learning failures are more productively identified as teaching failures and keep going and are willing to problem solve and experiment with different approaches as long as it takes to achieve success. The Communication Trust created an alternative paths to literacy document, which a few of you may already seen, but this really highlights how every individual member plays a unique role and has a unique contribution to make in terms of understanding and learning about how each particular child and young person learns and communicates. So coming right back round to what Tina said at the very start, all means all. And I love this quote by David Yoder, and I thought it was a really nice conclusion to this presentation. So no one is too anything to learn to read and write. They're not too physically, emotionally, communicatively, or cognitively challenged. Their hearing, vision, and behavior are not too impaired. They're not too disadvantaged or too old. No one is too anything to learn to read and write.
Thank you, Fran. We know that was a lot to get through, and we just hope that it inspired you to start looking at introducing reading and writing within your classrooms. We do have ongoing sessions. You can see on the screen here, there are 6 different dates. Each of those dates are an hour long. These will be charged for, but they will be £90 for all 6 sessions. We're going to keep this as a small group. We've had a lot of interest in today, but it will not be a group this size. We're going to give you and point you in the direction of lots of really great free resources that are going to help you to implement these strategies within your learning environments. And we're also going to create a free, a private Facebook group, which is going to enable us to carry on conversations, because we did spread these 6 sessions over time purposefully so that you could take the information and go ahead, consolidate it, try it out, and then we can have conversations about how it's working. Now, because you're here today, we are going to offer you an early bird special. So we do have the price down to £75 for all 6 sessions, and that's going to be up until the 23rd of April. So you just put in the code early-bird-offer. We will send all of this information in a follow-up email. The Facebook page isn't even live yet because some of you have answered questions about timings and stuff. When's a good time for us to start the session? So we're going to take that all into account and send you an email tomorrow morning about signing up, follow up to links and references from today. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email them to us. We'll also take some at the end. So I want to thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening. We're going to end the recording in just a moment. If you would, if you care to just answer a few more questions, it's a few different questions than we asked at the beginning. If you missed the first survey, you can do that at the end as well. We'll also send these as links. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Fran and Andrea, for supporting us. And we're just going to stop the recording now. And I'm